Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Tazama ukumbi wa fiqhi kwenye Horizon TV.
Halal, haram, sunna, wajib, makruh, mubah,
ili upate kujua ahkam za ibada kwenye Horizon TV.
A human rights investigative and campaigning organization with members in all parts of the country. The three organizations have come together this morning to announce a strategic initiative that is national in scope and is about to happen over the coming weeks. So we're about to read the statement, but before we do that, allow me to just introduce, or allow them to introduce themselves. I think because of the mics, I'll probably have to do this. To allow my colleagues to introduce themselves before we start. So on my left, we have the landlord landlady for Papa Shirandula, otherwise known as Mary Airo. Many of you know her, particularly from the work that she does to raise legal awareness on our screens. That work is as important as the legal clinics we're about to announce. So I just want to honor her creativity as an artist. But also her day job is that she is the national coordinator of the Paralegal Society of Kenya. And she will be speaking also to us this morning. To my immediate right is Mwaura Kabata. He is representing the Law Society of Kenya. He is the chair of the Public Interest Litigation and Human Rights Committee. The Public Interest Litigation and Human Rights Committee. And he will speak also this morning. To my far right is Wilson Kinyua, who is a lawyer. He is a legal advocate. He's a legal advocate for legal empowerment and an abolitionist in the sense that he believes in the abolition of the death penalty. And he is working as a consultant with us on this project. So although he may not speak, he is, of course, at the center of driving these initiatives. So allow me to start with the statement. And the statement is headed 10 Freedom and Legal Empowerment Clinics that we are organizing collectively, the three organizations, on Huduma Day. And I'll ask Mwaura to read the first section, and we'll just move around just so that you're able to capture this properly. So I guess we'll take a break and then move.
Ready? The Law Society of Kenya, Paralegal Society of Kenya, and Amnesty International Kenya will hold 9 legal empowerment clinics at Kaptembwa Chief's Office in Nakuru, Soweto Grounds, Mbungoni, Kanzandani in Mombasa, Eldoret, Nyando Social Justice Center in Kisumu, Awelo Chief's Camp in Siaya, Malindi Town, Garissa Police Station in Garissa, and Kenya Redcross Grounds, Kanduyi in Bungoma on Huduma Day, 10th October 2022. The Nairobi clinics will be held on the 12th October 2022 along Aga Khan Walk and Kibera Constituency.
Based on experience, one or in two Kenyans still believe there's no equality under the law. Access to justice requires legal empowerment and responsive institutions. Collectively, the The 10 clinics will target 1,000 clients. 9 legal clinics are intentionally taking place in Huduma Day to encourage community development and voluntarism, offer legal advice, share amnesty materials, and interview Kenyans on what freedom means to them. The Freedom and Legal Empowerment Clinics will provide free legal advice to people normally deprived of such services. The clinics will be held on some of the busiest streets in the respective counties.
I can see we're getting better at moving. One is much smoother. The 10 Freedom and Legal Empowerment Clinics are part of 4 activities that are marking Amnesty Kenya's 10th anniversary. After 2 decades of protecting human rights in Kenya, Amnesty International, the international arm of our movement, opened offices in Kenya, and we were registered as a non-governmental organization on the 18th of October, 2012. 1 decade later, Amnesty International Kenya has evolved into one of Kenya's largest and most respected and visible human rights associations. And we are proud to be here with 2 leading legal empowerment institutions, the Paralegal Society of Kenya and the Law Society of Kenya. We have extended invitations, and we are confident that we will receive on that day, October the 12th, at 10:30 on the Aga Khan Walk in CBD, the President of the Supreme Court, the representation from the Governor of the Nairobi City Government, and we have confirmations from the Chairperson of the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, the Kenyan National Commission for Human Rights, the Director of Public Prosecutions, and several human rights organizations. They will be invited to the Nairobi Freedom Clinic, at which point we will share the results of a legal freedom survey that we are conducting on October the 10th. And we will also light a candle, and like in all good birthdays, there will be a cake. So we invite you as members of the press to come and cover that event and to hear what recommendations we have for the judiciary, the prosecution, and also the legal community on how Kenyans, millions of Kenyans, can attain legal freedom and access to justice. Allow me to stop. This is the statement. Billy, who is here, will circulate the statement to all of you, and we can take questions and responses before we close. And the good news is we have a number of multilingual speakers here. I expect Mary speaks about 5 languages. So you can ask the questions in any language that is African or British. So let us start there. Any questions? If you can just raise your hand, introduce your media house, and of course, welcome to those of you who have joined us. I should also mention that we will direct the first set of questions to the Law Society, as Wakili Mwara has another engagement and had made his apology before this, so he will leave in the next 5 to 7 minutes. I will just receive the questions and then forward them to each. Yes, Mary. Mary, sorry. Oh, there's a microphone coming. Thank you very much, Jamia Moss.
So 2 questions. The first one, what are some of the striking concerns that you've noticed from people who suffer from access to justice? Number 2, what has informed the choice of these particular locations?
Good. Let's take a couple of questions, and then I'll come first to Advocate Mwara, the representative of the Law Society, And then we'll, I think Mary will have another perspective, so it will be good to get her perspective also. Any other questions? So unless you have all consulted and Mary has asked questions on your behalf, please don't let the nation lead the way. Let me create a bit of competition there. Any other questions? Okay. So I guess as the questions are coming, let's start with Mwara Kabata from the Law Society, and I'll move across so that he's able to respond.
Thank you, Mary, for your question. Well, the striking conversations that are similar in terms of the groupings that access to justice initially informs is the baseline indicator on socioeconomic rights vis-a-vis political rights. And I will answer the two sets of questions you've posed in one set of a response, because I believe I could use the indicator that you referred to as the choice or the focus point in the areas that the clinics will be focused on. For sure, you will see that we do not have the Nyalis, the Muthaigas, the Karens, even the middle class setups like Langata, South Sea, or wherever you will choose to refer to a middle class setup. But access to justice as a cardinal principle in what we refer to as the consonance justice agenda can only be achieved if those who it is presumed not to be available to are given an opportunity to feel the effect of the wheels of justice. Now, for those who are economically empowered, then it is, common sense that they will be able to afford an advocate or access to justice in the sense of legal representation, whether through personal development of the skills in order to access justice, or rather through representation by a third party professional. But you will notice that when you appear not to be able to make reference or engage in the economic parameters and the socioeconomic parameters of an economy, then it means you will not be able to afford, if we will use that term, the services that are being offered by those professionals. And if you look at the index locations that the clinics will be focused on, it will take a foreigner to not understand that the baseline indicator of these regions are regions that are economically not empowered. And so as we are discussing the question as to legal aid as a right in itself, we have also to address the economic, socioeconomic challenges that bedevil, or rather that are burdensome to our own citizens. And I'm happy that today we are here because we get an opportunity to not only highlight this plight, but also to encourage the various stakeholders to make further push into the realization of the importance and the fundamental place that access to justice, in fact, informs, even in our own socio-economic development. You will note that many people, in fact, the figures that are given here are only modest, but if you look at the statistics that are given by the judiciary, the figure is quite high for those who cannot access justice. And you will realize even the judiciary is taking key steps, for instance, with the small claims court, and it's doing great strides, yes, but we say that a lot of stakeholders that are here today can give an extra push that will, in fact, fundamentally address that. So Mary, I hope in those long words I may have managed to convince you, or rather to inform a narrative that we can continue to engage on. Thank you.
So Mary has
yes.
Okay, I think my response to you, Mary, especially on the first question, is that the challenge that we usually experience as Kenyans is a lack of legal knowledge. Because if people have legal knowledge or are legally empowered, then everyone can actually access justice. So you look at the areas where we intend to have the clinics, they are actually back, in the rural areas. That is where a big number cannot actually access justice because we do not have, if you look at lawyers operate in big towns. So then it means that the rural areas do not have people or people to empower them when it comes to the law. So then that is how now the Paralegal Society of Kenya again comes in, that having paralegals in these areas. So then the legal clinics will ensure that the sensitization, so apart from just giving that legal aid, that someone has come with a case that they need to be handled, but we're also legally empowering by passing the information so that then this information can have a ripple effect and flow back to the community. That way, when people have that information, it becomes really easy to, gravitate the justice system, or whether it is formal or informal. So then, for us, that is the biggest challenge. And the reason why, look at our prisons. Our prisons are congested. And why are they congested? They are congested with poor people who cannot afford lawyers, but then they do not have that legal knowledge. So then, when they have that legal knowledge, if you follow sometimes these matters in court, you find that when these people are empowered and they can self-represent, the wheels of justice move very fast. So for us, what these clinics intend to achieve is one, legally empowering by passing information, legal information, that then people can understand how do they move in case of an arrest or in case wanting to even engage the institutions, for example, the county government or the national government. All that people lack is that legal knowledge. Thank you.
Maybe just to add from an perspective that, the access to justice is a primary focus of her ladyship, Chief Justice Martha Koome. This was her major statement when she was appointed. It is now also very much the objective and the focus of the judiciary. Fortunately, the Kenya Kwanza administration, in its manifesto and even in the inaugural speech, President Ruto spoke about the importance of access to justice. And if you remember, there was an increase to the judiciary fund. There was also a appointment of the appeal judges that had delayed for 2 years. And thirdly, there was a focus on the small claims courts. And I think it's really important to recognize that, ordinary Kenyans, yes, have issues to do with authority. They may be unfairly prosecuted or arrested, but many of these issues are civil. Many of them are economic, and many of them actually have the capacity to wipe out savings of people's homes and households. So I think this is the reason we are focusing on access to justice. 4 statistics that I think it's really important to keep in mind. The first is, according to the economic survey and the crime research center, less than 5% of Kenyans report crimes to the police service. 5% of crimes are reported, according to the data we have produced by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. The second important statistic is the one that we have in the statement. The source of that statistic, that 1 in 2 Kenyans do not believe that there is equality under the law, is from an opinion poll that was conducted by about 15 human rights organizations in the first decade anniversary of the Constitution. So if you type Katiba at 10, that opinion survey, which is a survey that looks at Kenyans' experience with law courts, with human rights issues, there's very clearly a sense that the law is for the wealthy, for the rich, and for the powerful, not for all Kenyans. Our Constitution is clear. The rule of law applies to every human being. The third statistic is an important one, which is that, I think as Mary has said, 75% of the people in our remand centers, in our prisons, are under the age of 35, possibly even 30. and many of them will stay for between 2 to 4 years before their cases are concluded. In many cases, what these people lack is not innocence. What they lack is representation. Many of the young people who are arrested in petty offenses, whether they be women who are involved in illicit brew, or they are involved in commercial sex, or they are involved, men who are involved in vending and marketing of produce, the informal sector, many of them just don't have the resources or the knowledge to be able to protect themselves under the law from vexatious and kind of targeted malicious charges. So in many ways, what we are doing on Huduma Day is an act of service. It is the best way human rights organizations, paralegals, advocates, human rights defenders can spend their day, not at home, not watching television, not even perhaps staying with their families, which is important, or resting, but it's to be in the community, providing support, providing solidarity and legal empowerment and awareness so that people can go about their business not frightened of the law courts or police stations. And I think that's why we've come together to be able to do this. Let me give another journalist an opportunity to respond or to ask a question. And this will be the last one that I think Wakili Mwara can respond to. So I will give him the first opportunity. Yes.
My name is Selina Cheye from the Star newspaper. My question is, if someone, a member of the public at Huduma Day and at those clinics would like to have representation as by a pro bono lawyer, would that be possible?
That's an excellent question. Any other questions? Okay. So this will, let me just check. This probably is the last round of questions. Let me just check if there's anybody else who would like any additional information. And of course, we can do one-to-ones when we close. That is possible. Okay. Let's go with that last question, Zaina. I think that one definitely goes to the lawyers.
I did not get your name, but you'll allow me to call you my sister. Selina, thank you for your question. The stakeholders in the national legal aid narrative have their own independent resource mobilization mechanisms. And I will speak in turn on behalf of the Law Society of Kenya and maybe touch on the State Law Office in terms of the National Legal Aid Service, NLAS. What we do in the Law Society of Kenya, and from the 24th to the 28th of October, we will have the Legal Awareness Week, what we call legal aid in the LSK. It's a national week for legal aid that LSK offers to members of the public. And yes, positively I have to answer that we do afford members of the public and those who are unfortunate not to have the economic capacity to afford the services or for pro bono advocates within our own membership. So categorically, even in the National Legal Aid Service under the Department of Justice, which is under the Attorney General's chambers, they do offer free legal advice, including alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, including psycho-counseling services, which also LSK offers, and I believe other stakeholders do the same, like Kituo, NCAJ, there is ICJ. So it depends on the volume of resource mobilization that the particular organization has set up, and particularly I will only be comfortable to comment about LSK because I know pertinently if you have an issue, a legal issue, and you present it to the LSK, every day there are always walk-ins in our offices, in our national offices at Kitanga Road. You see the elderly, you see women who are in need of legal assistance, you see young men and elderly men walking in and walking out with partly or partial or full solutions, legal solutions. So it depends variably on the stakeholders' resource structures. But as LSK, yes, we do, and I invite you particularly on this 10th to attend the clinics, but also on the 18th under the national umbrella with Amnesty International. But in the next week, that will be on the 24th to the 28th of October, we'll have all these clinics in all law courts in Kenya, and particularly in Nairobi, we will have it at Milimani law courts at the parking lot. And we received the approval by the judiciary yesterday for Milimani law court, so we are all steams ahead. I welcome you, Selina, and the members of the press.
We have organized resources.
So this is an appeal to all Kenyans. We all know how we need services in terms of legal aid. And this is an opportunity for anyone who has a matter or wants to learn, because basically we'll be there giving legal knowledge that you will learn that may assist another person. So we ask you to come out, ask these questions that you always ask. Most of the time, my social platforms are usually full with inbox. You know, people asking me questions, this happened, what do I do? This is now a day where come out, ask questions, learn, know the trial process, know how to intervene when perhaps a member of your family or a neighbor is arrested. What do you do? Know the implications of charges. So this is an opportunity for you to actually get free legal aid that will actually assist many Kenyans, because we hope that when you get that information, you'll pass it on to someone else. Thank you.
Let us see each other again at 10:30 at CBD, well, in the CBD, but at Aga Khan Walk, and there we will have a few more guests for you to interview. Thank you, and welcome to a cup of tea as you leave. Yes, we could do it. Those of you who are doing photos, this is a great publication. We could hold up the document for you. Thank you very much.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Tazama ukumbi wa fiqhi kwenye Horizon TV. Halal, haram, sunna, wajib, makruh, mubah, ili upate kujua ahkam za ibada kwenye Horizon TV.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Kuna faida gani tupata tukimjua Mtume sallallahu alayhi wasallam,
nabii mwenye ushawishi mkubwa duniani?
Tukizikwa tukitiwa kaburini, tutaulizwa haya maswali matatu: man rabbuk, ma dinuk, man nabiyuk.
Sheikh Jamaluddin anakupa simulizi.
Huwezi kumpenda mtu usiyemjua
na kutambua sunna zake,
lakini ukimjua na ukimtambua Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, mapenzi yako yatazidi.
Ufahamu Rasulullah, familia na maswahaba wake. Tazama sira ya Mtume kila Jumatatu saa 1 jioni kwenye Horizon TV.
Uislamu ni dini yenye mpangilio ulio kamili, na taratibu zake humpa fursa kila mja kuifahamu na kuelewa.
Muislamu yoyote lazima achukue jukumu la kuifahamu dini yake, kuanzia kwenye shahada, ashhadu, nakiri kwa moyo, kisha usafi wa kimwili. Hapo ndipo huanza safari ya kumwabudu Mola wake.
Usikose kujiunga nasi kila siku ya Jumamosi live kwenye kipindi Ufahamu Uislamu, ili ujifunze mengi usiyojua kutoka Horizon TV.
Pearls of wisdom.
Abu Huraira radiyallahu anhu narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "By him in whose hand my life is, it is better for any one of you to take a rope and cut the wood from the forest and carry it over his back and sell it as a means of earning his living, rather than to ask a person for something and that person may give him or not."
Quote of the day. Imam Muhammad bin Idris al-Shafi'i said, "To admonish your brother in private is to advise him and improve him, but to admonish him publicly is to disgrace him and shame him."
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Tazama ukumbi wa fiqhi kwenye Horizon TV. Halal, haram, sunna, wajib, makruh, mubah, ili upate kujua ahkam za ibada kwenye Horizon TV.